guys, and welcome to A New Dawn. I am Dawn, and today's episode we're going to talk about The Clock Was Ticking. So if you are new here, welcome. If you have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Today's episode, I'm going to address a question that was asked to me, and I've gotten this question a couple times, so I wanted to take the opportunity today to just kind of go over my thoughts around a particular subject. Someone asked me what went into my decision to choosing to become a mom after age 40. In that question, kind of part A and B was essentially, were there any naysayers? How did I handle that? What are my feelings about choosing to become a parent after the age 40, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just going to expound on it. I'm also going to circle back a little bit just to kind of talk about what led me to making the decision in the first place. So with that being said, let's just get into it. So if y'all have seen my previous videos, y'all know I have battled for many years with uterine fibroids, and long story short, I had 2 operations, right? So my first procedure I had done in 2013 to remove the fibroids from my uterus. I had a procedure called a myomectomy, and essentially what went into me deciding to go with that particular procedure is because at the time I didn't have any children, and the idea was preserve the uterus, right? Then last year, so 2023, which is crazy, it's like a 10-year time frame, almost exactly to the day, I mean within like a month or two of each other, last year in 2023, I ended up having a total hysterectomy. So essentially my fibroids came back, and maybe that's not the best way to describe them. I developed new fibroids, and the new fibroids were hell on wheels from the time I noticed them. Yeah, they were hell on wheels. I held on to them fibroids for way too long. I was in a lot of pain. I was nauseous quite frequently. My cycle was extremely heavy. I was losing so much blood. I was anemic, didn't know it for like a long time. And then when I found out, it was like, of course I am, right? I just was uncomfortable all the time. I always was in this like heightened state of PMS. Like I always felt like I was bloated. I was always feeling nauseous. I was always feeling cramps. I got to a point towards the end where quite frankly, I was bleeding all the time. What happened last year is I ended up getting sick. It actually was my gallbladder, but when that happened, I made the decision to just take the uterus out. I had kind of been thinking about it anyway, but it just was like a matter of time of when I was going to decide I'm ready to have the surgery. But ultimately it was honestly one of the best decisions of my entire life. The amount of relief that I experienced after I had my hysterectomy is just unmatched. There is nothing else in the world that has provided me that kind of relief. Oh, there is one other thing. I actually had total knee replacement on both knees, so that's a whole nother topic. But internally, I was just like, I was going through a lot, but I had been for many years trying to preserve my uterus because I just had this idea in my head that I wanted children, but I wanted to be able to have children naturally, right? Like I wanted to have the ideal relationship, the marriage, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby, all of that. That didn't work out for me that way. And at this point in my life, I'm completely fine with it, right? But it took me a long time to get here. Hence, journey to a new dawn. So with that being said, choosing to become a mom at 40 was difficult, but easy. And what I mean by that is I have always desired to have children. Like, if you have listened to any of my previous videos, it's like so evident. I have always desired to have children. It's never been a secret to anybody that knows me. It just was, now I can say this in hindsight, it just was a matter of how I was going to go about doing it, right? There is a time in my past, and I talked about this so many times before, where I was in an abusive relationship. And one of the really main reasons that I stayed as long as I did, was because my biological clock was ticking. I mean, and it's like crazy. It's actually quite difficult for me to admit that now, right? Because at the time, I wouldn't even admit that to myself, let alone to the person that I was dealing with. And I felt like I was suffering in silence. My biological clock was ticking so loud, guys, that I literally couldn't focus on anything else. Like, I was in an abusive relationship. The relationship was terrible, really, from the beginning of it until the end. I mean, it was like, at one point, it was like a nightmare on wheels. I was afraid, like I was walking on eggshells around my house, because it's like, you never know when this person is going to snap, right? You never know what they're thinking. You never know what's going on with them. You don't know what's going to set them off, and if this is going to be a great night and we can just chill and watch a movie and be cool, or if we're going to get into an argument about laundry or what I fixed for dinner or didn't fix for dinner, right? So it was like just complete nonsense. Financially, I got into so much debt behind this relationship. Like, I made so many terrible decisions in this relationship, but at this point in my life, now that it's ended and it's been years since that's ended, I can admit to myself, like, my biological clock was ticking so loud that it was causing me to have blurred vision, right? So, see, there was this time where I was going through all that chaos that I stopped dreaming about having children, because I just thought it's never going to happen to me. And I'm in this lousy relationship. I don't want to have a kid anymore. Like, I had just stopped dreaming, period, right? I stopped setting goals for myself. I just shut down. When I started thinking about coming home, I started thinking about, my mom said to me after I had my very first surgery, and it was actually when I was planning to have my surgery, there are other ways for you to have children, and you're going to have a baby. And you just need to figure it out. And at the time, I tell you, that went in one ear and out the other. But when I was thinking of my escape, that came back to me, right? And I was like, it was like a light bulb went off. And it really was almost like a little cloud parted and the sun just shined on me just a little bit. Because I still felt like I was living in hell, right? But I had a glimpse of what my future could look like. And it started to drive me more and more and more, right? I still couldn't figure out quite how to leave peacefully, but I had a motivation. I was getting courage, like more and more every day. There are other videos to explain The Great Escape. You can go back and listen to them. But once I got out, I came up here and I started to get my life back together. I had to do a lot of healing. But as soon as I felt like I'm getting myself settled, I had moved into an apartment about 9 months after I came home, and immediately I started taking classes to foster to adopt. For me, again, I was already in my 40s at the time. When I would get on these classes, everybody would always ask, like, introduce yourself. So what's your name? What city are you from? Are you currently fostering? Or, when I was taking the intro classes, it was like, what made you want to foster, right? So I would always be like, I want to foster to adopt, and I would like a newborn. And people would be like, what? What you want a newborn for? And it would be people in the class who would be like, I'm only taking teenagers, or I'm only taking kids that are older than 10, or, I want the kids who are 17, almost 18, so they can help them transition right into adulthood. And they're like, what do you want a newborn for? And And I got that question a lot. I got that question a lot when I was deciding to foster, to become a parent. I got it from my family. I got it from my friends. I've had people tell me over the years things like, oh, you don't have children. What a blessing. You're so lucky. I've had people tell me, don't have kids. It's overrated. Don't get pregnant. It's overrated. So side note, my ex had a child. And during the summers, we would bring her to visit with us, right? She would stay with us for the summer while I was with her all the time. And I loved her. I actually still do. I love her. She did not call me her mom, but I think she looked at me as her mom, or she would say her mom in Texas, right? Like after, I knew her for a couple years, so I think she would say her mom in Texas. And I remember one time asking him, like, did you tell her to say that? Did you tell her to call me that? And he was like, no. And I had said something to my mom, and the wise person that she is, my mama told me, kids know who takes care of them. So you don't have to birth a child in order to be a mom to somebody. That kind of stuck with me. But I had someone tell me during that time that I was lucky that I wasn't a full-time mom, right? Like in my mind, when that little girl came to visit us in the summer, she'd be there the whole summer. I took care of her because quite honestly, he didn't. She was with me all the time. We connected, we bonded, we had a very good relationship, and I loved her and I took care of her as if she was my own child. I have godchildren that I love to death, dearly. And I'm close to my nephew, and anybody that knows me knows that, right? So I love these children like they're my own children, although they're not. But I had someone tell me, you're lucky. You're just a part-time mom to her. I wish, you know what I mean? And, I don't think people realize how hurtful those things were to say to someone who really wanted to have children but was having such difficulty having children, right? So for me, when it came time to decide to foster, to adopt, when it came time to take in the classes, when it came time to accept my placement, which is my son, it was a no-brainer. Even when I was going through my foster classes, from the beginning to the end, when I got my license, I always requested to have a newborn. I wanted a newborn because in my heart, I wanted to adopt. Like, I absolutely know what I'm getting into with fostering. The idea is reunification. So you never know, right? But I prayed for a child for such a long time. I wanted the opportunity to be a parent to someone from the start of their life until the end of their life. And even the licensing agent was like, we don't get a lot of babies. Would you consider expanding your preference, right? I can, but that's not what I want. I want a newborn. And God sent me a newborn. I got a newborn straight from the hospital. He was 2 days old when I met him, and he is 18 months. It is hard. I could not have imagined what this life would really be like, right? I don't take not one day for granted, but it's hard being a parent. It is even more challenging being a parent in my 40s. And I'll tell you, there's some pros and cons. What I've experienced thus far, I mean, it's short. It's just been a short time, right? So I'm not the most experienced. I'm not the most knowledgeable in the field of parenthood yet. Every day I learn something new, right? But I've learned to be humble, right? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. I've also learned how to be an advocate, not only for myself, but for him. It's you just can't do anything other than that. It's everything has become about him and protecting him, right? So he doesn't have the ability to speak up for himself just yet. So that's my job. But it is hard to do that. I am not a spring chicken. At 40, I don't have a bounce back. That bounce back is nothing like it was in my 20s. So, you know, there are days where I am just completely exhausted. And I know every mother is experiencing that, whether you're 20, 40, 60s, okay, whatever. It is tiring. It takes every ounce of my energy to keep up with a toddler. It takes a lot of patience. Being a mom in my 40s, I am grateful because I have the patience, right? I don't think I had the patience, and I'm a pretty patient person, right? But I don't think I had it when I was in my 20s, not for a kid. So I am glad that I made the choice to do it this late in life. Having a child this late in life, I have matured. I have stability. I can provide security for my child. I have knowledge I just didn't have before, right? And I have a lot of independence that I didn't have before. I have stability with my work. I have a very good relationship with my family. My family has stability. I've lived in a couple places, so I've seen other things outside of, you know, this town that I grew up in. I just have an appreciation for life that I didn't have when I was in my 20s, right? But it's hard because all of my friends are, well, let me take it back. I won't say all of my friends, but I have several groups of friends. So I have some friends who are in their 40s and who are single and living their best lives. They're traveling, they're going to concerts and food festivals and music festivals and just kicking it, and I'm a little jealous. I have to admit that I quite frankly live vicariously through them. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything because I've had my fair share of days where I was just out there kicking it. But, you know, it's kind of like you get to this point in your life and you have the means to do what you want to do. And now I have a little one that I'm responsible for. So I have to think twice about some of the decisions that I make. I have some friends who have children and they're grown now. So they're in the second phase of their life where their kids are grown. They're, you know, almost out of high school or just entering into college. And it's just a different ball game, right? I have friends that are a little bit older than me, you know, where their children have already graduated college. So they're just in a completely different phase in their life. And I have some who are kind of middle of the road where they have children who are school age, right? So it's different. It's different. It's the only thing that I don't have on my side is time. And it's not a regret, but it's just a reality. I just don't have time on my side. The good thing about that is I try to do the best that I can with every moment that I have to spend with this little boy. Because I know as he's getting older, I'm getting older too. And I'm already 40. I already got 40 plus years on him, right? My legs don't work like they used to. So it's funny because he's a toddler. So when he was learning how to walk, I was getting my second knee replaced. So I joke with my family that he and I are learning how to walk again together, right? Like I'm learning how to walk again and he's learning how to walk for the first time. So we're just going to have some different experiences with each other, but it's a blessing and I don't have any regrets about any of it. So hopefully that answered y'all's questions. And I look forward to answering more questions. So keep them coming. I am going to start a series called Have a Drink With Me, where I'm going to continue to take some of these questions and just kind of answer them one by one or two at a time. Just depends on what they are. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love and appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for keeping me encouraged. Thank you so much for your support. I just love you guys. Every week I look forward to y'all's comments. So don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.